Attention all F1 fans, welcome to F1 Max. Could we be seeing Lewis Hamilton's final season with Mercedes? Lewis Hamilton is yet to sign a new contract with Mercedes, as it appears negotiations have not gone particularly smoothly. So will Lewis Hamilton sign a new contract? Or could he be persuaded to jump ship to a different team like Ferrari or even Aston Martin? Today we'll take a look at Lewis's contract situation, the reasons why he should and should not sign with Mercedes, as well as some interesting alternatives that Lewis could be considering. So don't go anywhere. I don't think I really need to give an explanation of who Lewis Hamilton is. If you don't know who the 7-time Formula 1 world champion is, you're probably not a massive Formula 1 fan. But it does seem like a very long time since Lewis was winning those world championships. It's been a long time since Lewis was sitting at the top of Formula 1, with Mercedes clearly not being able to give him the car that he really wants in the recent years. Red Bull have become the dominant force in Formula 1 in the last few years, and I'm sure Lewis can't be happy to no longer be in the fastest car on the grid. While he's not been public about any dissatisfaction with Mercedes, you start to wonder whether Lewis will persist with the team who are unable to give him the car he wants. Lewis was happy to leave McLaren, who had brought him into Formula 1 when they began to struggle to produce a fast and reliable car. These sorts of things have turned what was once a formality into one of Formula 1's biggest talking points. That is, of course, Lewis Hamilton's contract. In the past, it was inevitable that Lewis Hamilton was going to sign a new contract with Mercedes. They were by far the fastest car on the grid, and Lewis was committed to staying in Formula 1, particularly as they were winning at the time. But that is not the case anymore, and Lewis has been signing a lot of one-year contracts recently. There are quite a few different reasons for that. Lewis clearly enjoys the freedom that comes with a one-year contract, as it allows him to consider walking away or moving team whenever he wants. The issue with a one-year contract is really on the hands of Mercedes. They certainly don't want to lose Lewis Hamilton, as I'm sure that every other team on the grid would happily have a 7-time Formula 1 world champion in their car. Thankfully for Mercedes fans, it seems like there are some negotiations going on between the team and their star driver. They would hope the talks would be pretty swift, but Mercedes fans are slightly concerned that there has been no contract agreement just yet. While there has not been any announcement about a contract actually being agreed, Mercedes fans will be pleased that by the sounds of it, it is a matter of when and not if. In fact, we could even see Lewis sign a contract in the next couple of weeks. Toto Wolff has spoken recently about his confidence of Lewis signing the contract. In a recent interview with CNBC, Wolff said, "It's going to happen soon, and we are talking more days than weeks. But if I commit to a date now, then everyone is going to ask me over the weekend what happened to the days." So by the sounds of it, Mercedes fans are in for some brilliant news anytime soon. Merck will also be pleased to have locked up the 7-time world champion before the summer break, when silly season starts, and the driver market starts to become very active. In that same interview, Wolff spoke about the importance of Lewis to the team and the sport. The Mercedes boss added, "Lewis is the most important personality in the sport. He's so multifaceted, not only with the racing but also off the track, so we need to keep him in the sport for as long as possible." Wolff added, "We both joined the team in 2013 together, and from a professional relationship, we now have a friendship. It has been a wonderful time." By the sounds of it, any new contract that Lewis signs with Mercedes would either be 1 or 2 years long. Lewis is 38 years old, and we know he has a lot of interests outside of Formula 1. That freedom and flexibility will benefit both sides in the future, so don't expect any long-term deal soon. The money situation is slightly more complicated, and it seems like this is the final part of the contract that needs to be agreed. As he is the biggest name in motorsport, you would imagine that Mercedes will have to shell out a huge amount of money to keep Lewis with the team. In fact, with Merck not having the fastest car on the grid anymore, they might need to spend even more cash to keep Lewis. Remember, in this situation, the contract has no effect on the team's spending limit, as this is an exception in the rules. The rumours are that Merck will need to once again make Lewis the highest paid Formula 1 driver on the grid. Being the highest paid Formula 1 driver on the grid is not the only interesting talking point about the new contract. There have been reports that some negotiations over special clauses in the contract need to be sorted. I know what you're thinking. What the hell does special clauses mean? Well, it seems like the contract will involve some sort of role for Lewis with Mercedes after he retires. By the sounds of it, Hamilton will become a Mercedes ambassador once he decides to retire, no matter when that is. The contract sounds complicated and boring enough to send either you or me to sleep. But the main point is that Mercedes continues to see Lewis Hamilton as the face of their brand moving forward. Merc are happy to commit to the 7-time world champion, even as he approaches 40 years old. Lots of different Formula 1 personalities have had their say on Lewis Hamilton's new contract with Mercedes. But I guess one man who probably knows what he's talking about is one of Hamilton's former teammates at Mercedes. Unsurprisingly, Nico Rosberg was asked about whether he believes Lewis will re-sign. Speaking to Sky Sports, Rosberg talked about Hamilton's impressive performance in Spain, saying, "He was really on it, really quick, really well managed. I think back to his best kind of driving. It's good to see the positivity." Rosberg recognised that Hamilton's impressive performances are great for contract negotiations. The former world champion added, "Days like this are perhaps a decisive factor in motivating him to sign. It's been such a tough time for Mercedes, but now there really is light at the end of the tunnel." It is a great point Rosberg is making. Lewis will have seen that Mercedes' upgrades worked, and so it could be a sign that they would be back in the title picture very soon. The details of the contract are likely to remain quiet, but much like there are in most F1 driver contracts, there will probably be quite a few exit clauses. There is no doubt that Lewis will be pleased with Mercedes' recent improvements, but this does not guarantee that they will return to the top of the grid. What Mercedes need to do is show they can produce the fastest car on the grid, or at least one which gives Lewis the chance of picking up that 8th world championship. This is not going to be a one-time thing, with Lewis likely having exit clauses throughout his contract. It could be similar to Max Verstappen's previous clauses, which said that if Red Bull were outside of the top 3 of the Constructors' Championship at the summer break, he could look for a move away. If Lewis has something similar, they will at least need to make sure they keep up with Aston Martin and Ferrari. While it seems almost impossible for Mercedes to catch up to Red Bull, they should certainly be aiming to be ahead of Aston Martin and Ferrari to make sure they're keeping hold of Lewis. While this question may be pretty pointless in a couple of weeks, if Lewis does decide to re-sign with the team, it is a question still worth asking. Should Lewis actually re-sign with Mercedes? On the one hand, Mercedes are clearly not the fastest car on the grid anymore, and it is tough to see a way for Merc to catch up to Red Bull anytime soon. Lewis might benefit from being with a different team. He has moved away from a successful team in the past, and that certainly went well. However, there are quite a few more reasons for Lewis to stay with the team. I think the main issue is that there's no obvious place for Lewis to go. While Red Bull may seem a good target because they have the fastest car on the grid, there is no way the team go for that move. They surely don't want to upset Max Verstappen by bringing in his main rival. It would also cost a huge amount of money that Red Bull probably don't want to spend, considering they've already got one driver clearly capable of winning the World Championship. So it would seem like a move to Ferrari or Aston Martin could be the solution if Lewis does not want to sign the contract with Mercedes. In the past, Lewis has spoken about his adoration for the Scuderia and called driving for Ferrari a dream. However, it certainly does not seem like Ferrari are any closer to challenging for the title than Mercedes are. Ferrari still seem to be making mistakes despite recently getting rid of Mattia Binotto. Moving to Ferrari would certainly seem like a step backwards for Lewis at this time. Aston Martin is an interesting team at the moment. They have risen to be a consistent podium challenger this season and are aiming to be the team which takes the first victory off Red Bull's hands. If Aston Martin were to bring in Lewis, they would have to either get rid of Fernando or Lance Stroll. Maybe Lawrence Stroll sees the bigger picture and removes his son from the seat, or maybe the team want to move on from Fernando. But it just does not seem likely that Aston Martin will ever think about launching a bid for Lewis. But what do you think? Will Lewis Hamilton sign a new contract with Mercedes? If he does put pen to paper on a new deal, do you think he's making the right decision? Why not put your thoughts in the comments down below? While you're down there, why not hit the like button and subscribe? Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.